What is going on, everybody? Welcome back. Week 11, LFG. That's right. Let's go, Mark. We're back. Cashing Points is back. Best show of the week. Let's go. Friday night, I'm back with my guys, Scott and Jake, going through a great slate. This is the best slate I think we've had in a long time. It's kind of felt like an early season slate. A lot of teams getting healthier, a lot of solid totals. Feels good to be back. Jake, Scott, what's up, guys? How you guys feeling?
Feeling good. I enjoyed seeing Thomas get Scott a little riled up pre-show, so I feel like we got good energy going. This is gonna be fun.
What's up, guys? Yeah, I'm excited, ready to party. Little housekeeping notes. Next week is Thanksgiving, right? Do I have that right?
Yeah, insane.
Right. Yeah. Which means you get the show twice. There's going to be, I guess, Wednesday. Show is going to be me, Jake, Johnny, for all you Johnny lovers out there, and then our regularly scheduled time is going to be myself, Johnny, Graham. I'm also going to start hopping on Johnny's Sunday morning update show. So for all you Johnny lovers out there, lots of Johnny coming your way. Yeah, can't believe Thanksgiving is already here.
Yeah, well, sick. That's sick. I'm glad you're hopping on the show with Proctor. That's been great on Sundays. I've been listening to that every morning when I set lineups. So that'll be sick. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, free this week. By the way, the site is 50% off. You can get in. Standard is $30. Also 50% off for premium for DFS. So if you're not subscribed already, make sure you're getting in on that. Without further ado, let's get into it. Really, really fun slate. Like I said, I had more fun researching the slate than I've had in recent weeks. But to start the show off, I thought I'd get the worst game out of the way. Steelers Browns. This game was 4 in favor of the Browns. It's down to 1. The total is down to 33. We won't have to spend a whole lot of time on this game. A couple of things. Both Steelers starting safeties are out. Minka Fitzpatrick is going to miss the game. Same with Keanu Neal. Obviously, Watson on the Brown side is out. They're going to go to Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Oh, boy. Not a great game. Remember, both Browns starting tackles are out too. Jack Conklin and Jedrick Willis. Just an ugly game. Scott, I'll throw it to you first, man. Just anything stand out from you in this game here?
Yeah, I think Najee and Jalen are pretty strong values. I would give the lean to Najee just because he's getting more near end zone usage. Although, of course, Jalen Warren has outplayed him. I would just gravitate towards that touchdown upside, but they're both fairly decent values up against the DTR-led Browns. You have to think, Vegas doesn't really see it this way, but I'm pretty confident in the Steelers to win this game. You can nibble on DTR just because he's so cheap, and he had that Konami code upside in college. I know he looked horrible in his last game, but he was pretty decent in PFF. I think he was their number 6 graded quarterback in preseason. Adam Kaplan had some good notes on him that he's really impressed the team in recent practices. Really, he's just a punt that lets you afford expensive players. Deontay, you can kind of throw a dart on. Volume has been awesome, specifically when trailing, not so much last week. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of just think this is going to be on both sides a running back centric sort of game. Yeah, I think John Hansen referred to it as like good old leather helmet football, and I think that's right.
Yeah, it will be. I think any of the Steelers running backs with Steelers D makes sense.
Oh, I keep doing this. Best play from the game, though, it would be Pat Freiermuth if he comes back.
He should. He'll be back, yeah.
Site minimum. That's the argument for him. It's actually like one of the worst matchups ever. Cleveland's giving up like 2.5 fantasy points per game to non-Mark Andrews tight ends this year, just like insane. But, that's like a Johnny thing where it's just like, oh, stone minimum tight end with 90% of the snaps. Like, love it. He's not going to rank too high for me, just, Trey McBride and all that, but he's in play.
Yeah, Trey McBride's the nuts again this week, but no, I love that call. He gets end zone targets too, has a legitimate touchdown upside too. I mean, it's Kenny Pickett, who knows, he could absolutely blow up again this week, just like he did last week. It's a tough spot, but yeah, Stone Men, yeah, he's in play for sure. But Jake, I'll kick it to you for any thoughts on the Browns backs. I mean, Ford just, kind of seems like a, low calorie, like just doesn't get to the touchdown upside. Kareem Hunt's getting all the red zone work here.
Yeah, I mean, 18 and a half rushing attempts per game for Ford over the last 2 weeks, 64% snap share. It's pretty nice at 5,200, but like you said, the red zone snaps just haven't been there. I think, you could justify it if you think the Browns roll for whatever reason. I guess the only other guy I want to mention here is, George Pickens has been pretty strong against single high at 4 catches for 127 yards and a score the last time these teams play. Cleveland plays almost exclusively single high. But yeah, it's super gross. I really don't have much interest in pretty much everyone.
Yeah, it is. It's rough game. We'll keep it moving for a great game. Cardinals, Texans. Texans are getting 6, over-unders 48. This is moved heavily in favor of the Texans. It opened around 4, 3.5, 4 in most spots. It's up to 6. Real quick, Cardinals are going to be without Amari DiMercado again, so it'll be a bell cow roll for James Conner. Scott, your boy Noah Brown's going to miss the week, man. Yeah, I hurt his knee from balling too hard, so he's going to miss this game. They're going to get Nico Collins back, so it'll be condensed again. Collins, Dell, Damian Pierce is out. I was just looking at props. Devin Singletary has the highest rushing prop of the week at like 78.5. Absolutely wild to see that. Makes sense though. Texans side, they're really beat up defensively. I noted that the Will Anderson didn't practice on Friday with a knee issue. Still, just a great game. We've been correct on Trey McBride every single week. He's still way, way too cheap, Scott. And Kyler's back, man. He looked great last week, fully back, scrambling like normal. Cardinals posted their first positive pass rate over expectation this season. Texans, like I said, are really beat up defensively. This is a really fun game, man.
Yeah, I think what immediately stands out is just how stupid Trey McBride's $4,400 price tag is. He's been my cash tight end for I don't know how many weeks now, and it feels even more obvious this week. It's either the best or the second best possible on paper matchup for a tight end. It's also an amazing schematic matchup. And that's what really stands out to me is like, obviously this game is really exciting, really sexy, massive shootout potential. And like the schematic matchups kind of make the stacks really easy. And I like, that's awesome. Like, cause otherwise, it could be really tricky to pick the perfect players, but in this instance, I think it's easy. The coverage shells that Houston typically runs, Trey McBride destroys, Michael Wilson destroys, and against like all other coverage shells does nothing. And Hollywood really struggles. And it's also a tough matchup for Hollywood like it was last week. And so that makes me really like Michael Wilson at cost. Trey McBride, obviously, like that's your cash tight end, and still like him a lot for tournaments, even though he's going to be chalky. Rondé Moore, I have no interest in. He's going to draw ownership, but he has like a negative 8 He has no upside. He was a product of the Cliff Kingsbury slot heavy offense, and this is now like a tight end centric offense. Hate his guts. And then on Houston side, again, it's the same thing with these coverage matchups. You could look at my recent tweets on this, but basically of like 150 qualifying receivers, Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz rank top 10 against the coverage matchups that Arizona plays at the highest rate. Whereas Noah Brown, who I know is out, Nico Collins, and Robert Woods all rank like bottom 20. So that kind of really just makes things easy for me. So I'm going to have heavy exposure to both quarterbacks in this game, and the stacks for me would be both tight ends and then a cheap Michael Wilson and Tank Dell. I will say, however, Nico Collins is, Tank Dell is going to be like the second highest owned wide receiver on the slate. And Nico Collins is projecting to be like 2%. We know he has immense upside. He's one of only, I think, 9 wide receivers with 30 more, 2 games of 30 or more DraftKings fantasy points. So, don't sleep on him, even if the matchup isn't perfectly in his favor. Wanted to talk about the running backs. I think Singletary is going to be like a top 3 cash play, easy, one of the highest owned running backs of the slate. You can argue against that because he's just like Devin Singletary and we know he stinks, but he was awesome last week. It was by far Houston's best game on the ground. You full on bell cow workload. So I think that, being a cash core play is certainly valid. I will poke holes in James Conner though. I know you called him a bell cow, Graham, and I saw you on Twitter call him a bell cow. It was bell cow usage. To me, it wasn't bell cow volume. He had 16 and 19 carries, but 0 targets out of the backfield. And that, I don't think that was just like a 1 week thing. Across the full season, he's averaging 1.5 targets per game, a 4.8% target share. And we saw last season when Kyler went down, he ranked behind only Christian McCaffrey in fantasy points per game from week 10 on. And a big reason for that was just like insanely good pass volume, 5.1 targets per game, 12.5% target share. And so I just really worry about that. And, they're 5-point underdogs. So like that makes this more concerning. The on paper matchup is a little below average, to say the least. And I just don't think he's a great value. There's a chance he scores twice on the ground and like kind of ruin some of my game stacks. But I think he's going to go overowned personally.
Yeah, the only note I had on Connor is the Cardinals did just run 60 plays last week. It was a weird game. They barely had the ball in the second half. So that could have been some of the, just small sample stuff. But
I mean, the one thing for him, he's averaging 5.2 yards per carry. I think Arizona ranks like second in team yards per carry this year. It's crazy.
I mean, just watching Connor this year, he runs so freaking hard. It's crazy how good he looks at 28. He looked great last week again. But no, all your concerns are valid. The only note I was going to add, because I think you pretty much nailed this game, is Michael Wilson did pop back up on the injury report today with a shoulder. He's been dealing with this all season. So just something to note there. But I'm with you. I think this game is really easy to stack. Jake, you have any other thoughts here, man?
I think Scott pretty much nailed it. Nico Collins is going to be higher than 2%, though. He's his projections kind of slashed across the board.
Yeah, he might be 2% on FanDuel though, because Tank is still 7K. Just going through some of the FanDuel stuff a couple hours ago. Yeah, he might be like sub 5% there, but yeah,
that's fair. I think on DK probably closer to 10. Robert Woods, if you're making a ton of CJ Stroud stacks, could be worth. Him and Noah Brown had been splitting a little bit of slot time, so that role should be all his. He actually probably will be 1, 2, 3% owned. So he's a little interesting, but I think Scott nailed it. This is an awesome game. Love both these quarterbacks for tournaments. Love this game for GPPs. Can game stack the hell out of it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, great game. I think that'll cover it.
Well, real quick, Jake. Yeah. I definitely lean Purdy as the cash quarterback this week, but how close is it for you between Purdy and Kyler?
I think on DraftKings, it's pretty close to a coin flip. I would go with whoever you want to play more. You could argue, Kyler has the better floor because of the rushing, but man, the projections are pretty much the same. I feel pretty much the same about both guys. I think on FanDuel, Purdy's not really in the conversation. There's like 5 different guys that you could consider the cash quarterback on FanDuel. I would lean Kyler over on FanDuel for what it's worth.
Yeah, they didn't adjust his price on FanDuel. He's the same price last week. So, yeah, like it. All right, we'll keep it moving here. Chargers, Packers, interesting game here. Chargers getting 3 on the road in Lambeau. Totals 44. Keenan Allen got back to a full practice on Friday, so he should be full go. Gerald Everett is going to miss this game here. It should be a Donald Parham and Stone Smart rotation. Packers side, maybe they'll get Jerry Alexander and Quay Walker back. Obviously, would be huge for them this week. We'll see on that. Packers are getting some sharp money, and I think it makes a little sense. Jordan Love has definitely looked a little better the last 2 weeks. Their defense is getting a little healthier. Maybe Jerry Alexander will be back. Could be a potentially fun game. Jake, I'll throw it to you first for your thoughts. And, if you're stacking this game, where do you want to build here?
Yeah, stacks are tough. I mean, obviously, Aaron Jones is a really strong value. You could make an argument for Christian Watson based on, his deep targets. If him and Jordan Love can ever build a connection, there could be something there. The Chargers defense has really struggled. I can give the same stat I gave out last week with Jordan Love. Packers have a pretty big advantage per our offensive line, defensive line tool in terms of pass grade. Jordan Love averages 22 DraftKings points per game in the 4 games he's been pressured at less than a 20% rate. So, maybe you could justify him for tournaments. I don't think I'm getting there though. I do like Donald Parham for what it's worth. I mean, the guy's really good, and Stone Smart is like a practice squad level guy. They really like targeting Parham near the end zone, and obviously, I have to tout a former XFL god. On the Chargers side, Keenan Allen, Tyreek Hill is going to absorb, it seems like, most of this ownership among the expensive wide receivers. Keenan Allen's volume, though, especially post Josh Palmer going on IR, has just been incredible. I mean, like 55% first read target share, like unheard of stuff. So, you could certainly argue that, Keenan Allen, maybe not in terms of overall upside, but in terms of median, should be right there with Tyreek Hill as the top wide receiver play of the slate. CeeDee Lamb's also probably in that conversation. Beyond that, I mean, I'll let Scott handle Eckler. I'm not really sure what I want to do with him quite yet. But stacks for this game are tough. I kind of feel better about playing most of these guys as one-off plays. Just I think there are better places to go on the board if you're want to go crazy with game stacks.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We'll talk Eckler real quick. I want to talk Aaron Jones too. I think he's going to pop as a value 6,200. I just want to note, last couple of weeks, the big concern with him was he just wasn't getting into the inside 10 red zone stuff. That's kind of flipped last 2 weeks. He's outsnapped AJ Dillon 16-8. He has 9 carries to Dillon's 4. I do like Aaron Jones, and I think, Jake, I mean, what are ownership projections looking like? I haven't looked too hard at Aaron Jones 6,200.
He'll be up there. He's I would assume top 4 on both sides. He's projecting pretty well across the board.
Yeah. He's going to be, I think, probably one of the stronger values when everything kind of gets settled in for projections by Saturday night. Scott, what do you think about this game? What do you think about the backs?
I think Aaron Jones is a strong value. He's typically pretty game script dependent, and this isn't a game Vegas expects Green Bay to win. That's a concern, but I mean, they are projected to score a lot of points, and volume's been good, like you said, and more in his favor. Definitely a strong technical value. Not one of my favorite plays, but he's up there. Austin Eckler, though, he's definitely one of my favorite GPP plays. He's just been the same old Eckler this year. He's had some really tough matchups, but 14 to 19 carries in every game, 7 or more targets in 3 straight. That's going to continue with Keenan Allen a little banged up, Josh Palmer still out, and rushing efficiency is going to typically be poor, but he every 4th game he just randomly has like 190 rushing yards and massive touchdown upside every single week. I think the price is good, the ownership looks good, and he goes from another bottom 5 matchup to an easy top 10 matchup this week. So I like him a lot.
Yeah, I think this is kind of like what we talked about with Keenan last week. It's kind of the same thing with Eckler. 4 straight really tough defenses: Chiefs, Cowboys, Jets, Lions. Steelers just put 35 fantasy points on the Packers last week. And on DraftKings, it's always interesting when this happens. So we've got CMC obviously at 93. We've got ETN at 72. I think ETN is going to be probably one of the most popular plays on the week. But we got Eckler like kind of sandwiched in between here. So if he kind of comes in lower owned because people are deciding between higher or lower, it makes an even better play. I like that call a lot. I have like no interest in Packers receivers besides Jaden Reed every week. Kind of feel the same way this week. He's just not a full-time player though. 51% route share. I still think he's just, he's their best player, but he's not full-time. It's, tournament only. That's about all. I think that's all we really got for this game.
Yeah, I'll say Jordan Love's like a fine contrarian quarterback. He's he's
got a 4.
He's bad in real life, but he's been fine for fantasy. He's only averaging like 1.4 DraftKings fantasy points per game less than Jared Goff, who's 1K more expensive. And it's the perfect matchup. Like this Chargers easily the top schedule adjusted matchup for quarterbacks. They're pretty good against slot wide receivers, but they're especially vulnerable to outside wide receivers and also tight ends. If I had to pick a favorite stacking partner, like I think it's obvious, Christian Watson. Jake tweeted it out where I let in with, listen, I'm not trying to gaslight you, but since week 5, he leads the league in end zone targets per game. He ranks 8th in deep targets per game. It's a top 3 matchup. You know, the spike week upside is certainly still there. Although, like, granted, I know how brutal it's looked. So, but I'm going to play him, but like, yeah, probably don't tail me on that, but I might just be crazy.
Nah, this is the best week to play Watson in the last month. Love's looked a little better. But I was looking at this, man. Watson is averaging 3.3 catchable targets per game. I mean, it's definitely a Love thing. Like, Watson is getting open, and this connection has just not been there. Volume's meh. But he's not going to be played at all, like, on FanDuel this week. This will be like the first week I think he'll be not owned. All right, we'll keep it moving. We spent too much time in this game. Giants Commanders. Let's go. Giants Durs. Washington's getting 9.5. It is Tommy DeVito time again. Danny DeVito's son. Don't Google it. I don't know. There's not much to this game. Washington's going to be without Antonio Gibson. Brian Robinson is going to project even better, I think, when everybody gets their projections updated this afternoon. Gibson's going to miss this game with a toe injury. It's Terry McLaurin week for sure, Scott. I think that's where we got to get started here.
I would start with Brian Robinson. I think he is really one of the best plays of the slate. He ranks as fantasy football.
Hold on, Thomas. We got to clip that. Scott saying Brian Robinson is one of the best plays of the slate. I never thought I'd hear the words, but he's right. He's right.
He is fantasy football's RB6 on the season. He's priced as just the RB17 on the slate. He averages 5 more fantasy points per game and wins, 17.2, than losses. Washington's favored by 9 points. The Giants are a bottom 3 matchup for running backs. And he saw this newfound use in target volume last week where he hit season highs in route share, targets, and 6 targets. And that's notable to me because this guy leads all players at all positions in fantasy points per target, second in depth adjusted yards per target over expectation. So he's been great in that role. And so now you're saying Antonio Gibson is out, ideally locking him into that role. And everything is just working in his favor. And so I really like him. I also think you can easily play Sam Howell. This is a guy we've been all over every single week, and it's worked out extraordinarily well for us. Why can't he just do exactly what Dallas did? You could quibble with game script, but I mean, this is the 3rd most pass heavy team in the NFL by pass rate over expectation. It's just them, the Bills, and the Chiefs. And this Giants defense sucks. They're down their CB1, Adoree Jackson. Their other 2 corners and 2 safeties are all hurt. I think Washington can do whatever they want against this Giants team. Terry McLaurin, is going to be super chalky. My concern with him is, like, how many times has he been chalky this year? And he hasn't really ever delivered. He doesn't show much spike week upside. Like, granted, this definitely seems like the matchup for it, but season high 90 receiving yards, only 2 touchdowns in the year. Sam Howell's been awesome, but he's spreading the ball around to a pretty high degree. He's definitely the best play though, and he is a strong value. I also like Curtis Samuel at 3,600. He's, for his production, potentially in this kind of like similar to the Mecole Hardman role where he's getting these schemed looks near the end zone. And Giants are so bad against slot wide receiver. I mean, granted, maybe now they're just bad everywhere. But I think does have the matchup, and he is cheap.
I mean, Dak was awesome last week. Don't get me wrong, but they got dusted by Brandon Cooks. They got dusted by Michael Gallup on a vertical ball last week. I hear you on McLaurin. I think that's been the one thing you and I've both said about McLaurin the last couple of years. It's just he's kind of a fine floor play, but his ceiling's not that strong. The one thing I'll say, he's had a couple of tougher matchups. Seahawks have been really good. Patriots obviously are going to try to scheme out your number 1 wide receiver. He was really good against the Eagles, good against the Giants. Had a good game against the Falcons. But they're a tough matchup too. So, I mean, this is the best spot McLaurin's had all year. And that's kind of why I want to start with him, because, everybody's going to be on Brian Robinson now, Jake. But Sam Howell, McLaurin stacks look really strong. I mean, Commanders they project amazing this week. Jake, you're on mute.
Oh, got his ass.
Other than Scott. Wow.
You have to. What's the rule there? Drink twice or chug the whole beer, right? If it's someone besides me.
Yeah, you got to chug the whole thing, and it was plus 750. I mean, that was a massive.
Yeah, that might be my first mute on a cashing point stream this year.
I think it was.
But yeah, no, love Sam Howell, love Sam Howell stacks. I had a tweet earlier this week. Washington's throwing the ball at a top 8 rate in every conceivable scenario. The pass volume here is absurd. Sam Howell's about to set the NFL record for dropbacks. Wow. Yeah, so it is. Yeah, it's totally insane. I'll hype up Scott's guy Logan Thomas a little bit. He is, a pretty strong usage-based value, 6th among slate eligible tight ends and targets per game, the 3rd best value at the position by expected fantasy points per dollar of DraftKings salary. Yeah, you can really, mix and match Sam Howell with all, 4 of his top receivers. And I also really like Brian Robinson. I think Brian Robinson plus Washington defense makes a ton of sense. No interest in the New York Giants side, though.
Yeah, do not play Howell and B-Rob together. And that's the right call on B-Rob with Washington D. That's the way to play it. Yeah, I love it. Let's keep it moving. Just going to ignore the Giants for the rest of the season. Sorry, Scott.
I don't want to be reminded of them, please. Yeah, let's keep
okay, just dream of Jason Sehorn. Dream of Jason Sehorn.
Or Drake May, maybe.
There you go. All right, Titans, Jags. Oh boy, speaking of teams I don't want to talk about Trevor Lawrence. Jags are 7-point favorites. Total's 40. Real quick, Titans side. Treylon Burks is still in concussion protocol. Man, this dude has been like completely bitten by the injury his entire career. Like, oh my God, man. I feel bad for him at this point. Jags are not going to be without. They're going to be without Zay Jones, I think, this week with his knee injury and then his legal stuff going on with the domestic violence. The Jags said that they're still gathering information. Doug Peterson hasn't really said anything definitive, but I don't think he'll play. Tyson Campbell, their corner, he's been battling a hammy all year. He's going to miss this game. Definitely makes the spot a little better for D-Hop if the Titans can keep him upright. I was, watching Red Zone as I always am on Sunday, and I didn't really see much of the Titans-Bucks game. Went back and rewatched it on Monday morning as I always do. We're rewatching games, and Levis had like 0 clean pockets. They'd have backed it up. 50% of his dropbacks, he was pressured last week. Good news is the Jags have not gotten much of a pass rush consistently all year. So that's a little plus for this spot. Jake, I'll throw it to you first, man. Travis Etienne 7,200. Obviously the game got away from him last week. Game script got completely out of hand. But man, 7,200 is such a good price for Etienne on DK again.
Yeah, especially on DraftKings. I mean, he's very viable as a cash play. On FanDuel, more of just a solid value. But he's 90% as productive as Christian McCaffrey by DraftKings fantasy points per game, and he's 78% of McCaffrey's cost on DraftKings. So really like Etienne. I don't have a ton of thoughts on the Jacksonville pass catchers here, but I will say, at least on the Tennessee side, Will Levis was the 3rd highest owned quarterback in the Millionaire Maker last week, which is absurd. I mean, I do apologize. I thought he was going to be low owned. I touted him as a lower owned quarterback last week, but he's in basically the exact same spot this week, facing another pass funnel. I believe Nick Football Insights noted that it's a pretty solid schematic matchup for Levis. And I do actually think this week that he will be, 1, 2, 3% owned in tournaments. So It's justifiable when you consider, he's got a rocket arm. He's hyper aggressive, league leading average depth of target. I think he's a little interesting for tournaments paired with Hopkins. But yeah, I'm curious on Scott's thoughts here on the Jacksonville pass catchers.
Yeah, to me, it's definitely Calvin Ridley who stands out. I think you can get by fading him because he stinks this year and he's done nothing. Like, that's just like at a certain point, like, just stop playing these guys who are biting you in the ass. But that being said, 5,400, decent price tag. Christian Kirk has been better, but Ridley has more spike week upside. Kirk has just 1 game with 20 or more DK. Ridley has 2. The matchup is definitely in Ridley's favor. Tennessee ranks bottom 6, or top 6 to slot wide receivers, bottom 2 to outside wide receivers. The schematic matchup is also wildly in Calvin Ridley's favor. So we have a new tool that's coming out very soon to Fantasy Points Data. Shout out to Fantasy Points Data. I have been working on this for so freaking long. So have all the behind the scenes people like Chris Wecht and our developers. And it kind of just sorts, it looks at a wide receiver, how good they are against various coverage cells, cover 0, cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, and then how frequently an opposing defense plays those coverage shells above or below the league average rate. And basically, Tennessee plays cover 1, cover 3, and cover 4 at a rate well above average. Everything else, they're well below average. And Ridley's fantasy point per route run basically doubles against these 3 coverage shells. Yep. He's going to see 71% of the time. So it's like when I looked at this tool, one of the top names on there was Calvin Ridley. So has the schematic matchup, has the on paper matchup. Now he just needs to not be terrible, which, may or may not be a tough ask for him this season.
Just for what it's worth, man, I don't think it's him. I think it's a quarterback. And it makes sense. I mean, just looking at it, cover 1, cover 3 are 1 high looks. Ridley has been the guy against 1 high all year. So I love that call. To me, it's Lawrence. I mean, Lawrence was awful last week. I think the book is out on him, man. You take him off his first read, pressure him. I mean, he just struggles, he's scrambling more this year, which is good, but he just has not had much of a ceiling. My favorite thing to do in this game would be play Hopkins with Ridley or Kirk, and then just kind of leave it at that. You can leave it as like a little mini game stack. Don't mind that.
Evan Ingram is going to be popular, and this circles back to what we were talking about last week. Like, the dude has no touchdown.
Bro, he has not had 1 end zone target. That's it's schemed. He
has 0 end zone targets. You want to guess how many red zone targets he has?
0.
He has 2. You want to guess how many receiving yards he has on those targets?
-1.
-9.
Oh my God. Close.
So I mean, he's not good enough for cash, and there's no ceiling there for tournaments. So what are we even doing here, people? But
yeah. I mean, he had one of his better games against the Titans last year, but I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, he's been 5 catches for 40 yards all year. I
just wanted to agree with Jake. I think Etienne's one of the best plays of the slate.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, especially on DraftKings.
And to further his point about Will Levis, what would theoretically be the one thing that would hold Will Levis back? And he has no time in the pocket. He's shaky under pressure. We saw this in college. His pressure to sack ratio is insanely high. Good news. Jacksonville has a bottom 6 pass rush. So that could be all he needs to connect with DeAndre Hopkins. You've seen the volume has been there. So that's significant to me.
Nice. Yeah. Jags pass rush has not been good.
Kyle Phillips as a punt, he's led the team in receiving yards back-to-back games. He's still just a part-time player, 40% route share. Probably doesn't have a ceiling, but I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, questionable ceiling for sure. But yeah, he's in play again. Westbrook Ikine is definitely not, by the way. He's so mid. All right. Bears Lions. Fun game to stack. Really fun game. 7.5.
I love this game.
Dude, I
love it.
I do too. I think this is a better game than
it doesn't look popular either, which is crazy.
I know. I think Cardinals Texans will be not a lot more popular, but definitely more popular in general. Those pieces on DraftKings are just so cheap. I think people are just going to gravitate to them. We're going to get Fields. Bears backfield is a mess. Khalil Herbert will be back. Lions are clean. Yeah, let's talk through it, man. Fun game. Scott, I'll let you take the reins, man.
All right. Let me start off with Justin Fields, right? He averages 31 fantasy points per game over his last 2. In 3 NFL seasons, he had never eclipsed 17 passing fantasy points in a single game. CJ Stroud has done that 5 times already. Well, that was before week 4. Last 2 healthy games, he eclipsed 27 passing fantasy points in both. So it seemed like he was on the cusp of this insane fantasy ceiling, because he always had the highest rushing ceiling and floor in fantasy. In his last fully healthy game, 10 designed rushing attempts. That's the second most by any quarterback in any game this season. The field, the donkey people out there who aren't fantasy point subscribers are going to look at this matchup and say, this is a bad matchup. I'm seeing this as a really enticing matchup. Fields hit the 100-yard rushing bonus in each of his last 2 games against Detroit. Detroit, the last 2 seasons, has really struggled against hypermobile quarterbacks. They gave up 24.7 to Jalen Hurts, 43.4 to Justin Fields, 30.9 to Josh Allen, 21.2 to Justin Fields, 37.9 to Lamar Jackson. And then just the rushing production there, the DraftKings rushing production, 15, 29.7, 13.8, 16.2, 9.6, insane. And then Jared Goff, like I didn't expect to be, I just thought, Justin Fields is going to be my guy. This is a no-brainer. But Goff honestly comes close. Jake Tribby had a good note in his article. Goff or maybe he got this from you, Graham, actually, because I think I remember you talking about this, but he averages 24.9 DraftKings fantasy points per game when Detroit has an implied total 25 or higher. He averages 5.8 more fantasy points per game at home than on the road since joining Detroit. I forget my metrics, but I think the last 2 seasons that's been like even more obscene, where it's like 9 of his top 10 highest scoring games have all come at home. The matchup is great. It's a top 4 matchup by schedule adjusted. It's also a perfect, it's also a top pass funnel matchup. Bears, I think, are giving up the second fewest rushing yards per game. And they rank bottom 3 by adjusted net yards per attempt allowed, passer rating allowed, all that stuff. And it's an amazing schematic matchup as well. Goff ranks top 3 against single high coverage, which Chicago has been running out at a top 5 rate the past 4 weeks. So everything is coming up roses for this game. Shout out to our guy, AJP, who's been crushing same game prop parlays. He's up like, 25 units or something insane. I know you watch this show every week. So if you're listening, this is a great game for a same game prop parlay. Hammer that Fields rushing over, hammer all Goff overs, Jahmyr Gibbs receiving over, Amon-Ra over, DJ Moore over everything. And so that's just the quarterbacks. And then 4 wide receivers. Jake Tribby always asks me, is like, all right, who's the guy that Scott thinks is like a must play for cash? And like, he's like, no one else has him in cash. That would be DJ Moore. I mean, just look at his last 4 full games with Justin Fields, 19.4, 13.1, 30.1, 52 DraftKings fantasy points. He obviously struggled with Tyson Bagent, but he gets his guy back. You can make a case for Cole Kmet too, who like that was Bagent's guy, but he was pretty productive when Fields was going nuclear in his last 2 games. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, is an awesome, obvious play. I was all over him last week. He's basically 94% Justin Jefferson at like, or maybe 97% at like 88% of the salary. If you look at over his last 28 games versus Jefferson's last 28 games, it's like a difference of 0.2 targets and 0.6 fantasy points per game. He's playing his best football yet. He's hit the 100-yard bonus in 6 of his last 6 fully healthy games, 12.8 targets. Amazing schematic matchup this week, although the on paper matchup's below average, but it's like a perfect schematic matchup for him. Jahmyr Gibbs too. I think you can still play David Montgomery. Like the guy can score multiple touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs did get more of the near end zone usage last week, but it was reported that David Montgomery was like heading out in the field and he was like, "Hey Ja, you want this TD?" And he's like, "Yeah, can I have the TD?
Can I have a TD, please, sir?
Please, sir, can I have some TD?" And so so he got that touchdown. And so who knows, maybe it's just, David Montgomery's feeling a little more greedy. But like still, like regardless, like out snapped him 37-24, out carried him 14-12, out targeted him 5-0. Like this is what we were hoping. Like, I don't know if I fire this tweet out or if I just like almost hit send 15 different times, but it's like, I could easily see Jahmyr Gibbs outscoring Bijan Robinson by a wide margin. And like, I think that's where we're at if he maintains this sort of XFP share he had last week. And so projected game script is definitely more in Montgomery's favor, and that matters a lot. But I mean, I just quoted all those stats about how his usage is better. Detroit never once trailed in that game. But still, 7.5 is a big difference. But the matchup, you look at the matchup, Bears are giving up the second fewest rushing yards per game to running backs, but the most receiving yards per game to opposing running backs. So I like him. I'm just going to totally monopolize this game. I'm sorry, guys. Laporta, he's fine. He's just 3% owned. He's just he's seen double-digit targets in 2 of his last 4. He has a decent ceiling. A guy I'm kind of interested in, and I stole this from Brett Whitefield, who, he's really good with stuff like this, is Josh Reynolds. He's 3,700, 0% owned. If you take away his 3 worst games, and granted 2 of these came in the most recent weeks, then he's averaging 64.2 yards per game. That's like Chris Olave, DeAndre Hopkins, Jalen Waddle, Tank Dell, Terry McLaurin, Jordan Addison. Only 1 fewer game of 50 plus receiving yards or 66 plus receiving yards than, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Chris Olave, etc. And so it's a pass funnel matchup. It's a game with the highest over under the slate. I just think he's a better value than anyone else is going to consider. So he's another one of those cheap punts who I think is in play. Another guy to add to your parlay and click the over.
Yeah, well, we know it's definitely not Jameson Williams overs. That's
well, sure. I did write him up too, because he did hit a season high in route share last week, 45.5%. Although he's only seen 17 targets through 5 games, he has exactly as many targets with 30 or more air yards as Justin Jefferson or Brandon Ayuk. But the big thing is, for the first time ever, Dan Quinn, after last week's game, publicly praised Jameson Williams
for blocking.
Yeah, it was because he had a killer block on David Montgomery's 75-yard touchdown run. But also last week, he did have a touchdown negated due to penalty.
Yeah.
He just has that in his bag, that explosive 90 yards.
As a 0.5% owned Galaxy brain play, I think Jameson Williams is fine if you're stacking the hell out of the game. But Graham's right, 45% route share. What's the ceiling on his route share? 55, 60%, even if he is in Dan Campbell's good graces. It's
Yeah, no, I'd rather play Josh Reynolds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
honestly. At least I got one of my Galaxy brains to.
I think that makes more sense. Williams, he'll get one shot play and he'll get a screen, and if he houses it, then you're golden. Yeah, I love this game, man. I really don't have much else to add besides Scott's points. I wanted to take some Justin Fields rushing overs. I thought I could maybe sneak in a 41.5 or 42.5. Nope. He's projected 48.5, 49.5. Rushing attempts 8.5, juiced heavily towards the over. So, markets are expecting Fields to be running as usual. So, yeah, great game.
I would hammer that over. I think he's going to go way over that.
Yeah, I want to hammer some DJ Moore overs. The downfield targets just completely died with Badgett, but with Fields in weeks 1 through 5. They caught they connected on 10 of 16 targets for 264 yards, a couple touchdowns on throws of 10 more yards. So, I want to hit some DJ Moore overs this week.
I just want to reiterate too, Fields is at 4% according to Darren's ownership projections that are on the site, and Goff is at 7%. That looks awesome.
I do think Fields will get steamed a little bit industry wide. The ceiling is so good at 5% that I have a hard time not thinking every site will at least mention him as a strong target.
Yeah, I know people aren't playing on FanDuel as much. I think he's going to be maybe the second highest owned, maybe the highest owned quarterback over there at 7,400. DK, you're probably right. He won't be as chalky, but he's going to come up.
Still a great play. Even at 7 or 8%, I still love him for tournaments.
Yeah, and Scott,
you told me he was 9%. He might still be my favorite GPP quarterback of the week.
Yeah, I think 9% that's probably where he'll end up. And my note on Goff, by the way, is just it's not his home road splits. It's just he smashes when he's a favorite. In 12 games as a favorite since 2022, he is averaging 302 yards per game, 8.5 yards per attempt. He's just been awesome, and it just has, so happens that most of those games are at home. 9 of those 12 have been at home, but he's absolutely smashed in his 2 road games as a favorite. So yeah, man, Goff is a good play again. I think I said he was kind of a poor tournament play last week, and I think that was just wrong analysis on my part, especially given all the research I've been doing into his splits. I think he's a really good play this week too. Obviously, easy to stack as well. All right, Raiders Dolphins, interesting game. This game, I mean, I could see the Dolphins absolutely rolling here, but Tua and Tyreek in 3 quarters could have 300 yards and a couple touchdowns. Fun stack. We got to talk through this backfield. I got no real injury notes for this game, so let's get it started with this backfield. Jake, what do you think about Achane, Mostert? What's your read, man, going into this week?
Yeah. So, Mike McDaniel said that this was just a sprain for Achane. Didn't need surgery, no tear, obviously. So, he should be good to go. They also talked about him potentially avoiding IR altogether. So I really don't have any workload concerns for Achane. This is also a fantastic schedule adjusted matchup from a rushing perspective. And we've seen this year over and over again, Miami has just absolutely dominated these average to below average teams. Haven't exactly shown up against good teams, but that's not what they're dealing with this week. One thing though, and I do think this is very important to note, industry wide, I'm not seeing Achane projected for more than like 10% ownership. He's going to be like 20%. He's going to be incredibly popular in tournaments. I don't see any way how he isn't. But he's still a fantastic play. Even at 20% ownership, still a great play. I think Mostert is a pretty good play too. He'll probably go under owned because people will be so excited to play the guy who's averaging 35 DraftKings points per game. I think if you're making 150 teams, you could set a rule that just says minimum 1 Dolphins running back in each lineup. I know Scott might disagree. I would not play both in a lineup. But yeah,
I would say don't set it to maximum 1. Like I think you definitely could. It's tough because they're expensive. Unlike some of the other weeks we tried that, but on
DK I think they're completely fine. FanDuel though is a lot harder. Achane's 8K over there, but DK, man, Achane, I'm with you, Jake. I think we talked about it on Tuesday. Achane possibly being a really good tournament play. I'm with you. I think people are going to get on him at 6,600. I was listening to Mike McDaniel's presser. I think it was on maybe Monday or Tuesday, but he was basically saying Achane was like untackleable in practice, and I was like, all right, that's all I needed to hear. I'm with you. I think he'll be the 1A. And he got most of the inside 10 stuff. That's what I'm most interested in is, we want Dolphins touchdown equity, and he's got it. Great spot too. Vegas is so easy to run on if you just avoid Crosby. So it's a really, really strong spot. Curious, man. It's Tyreek's, getting up there in price, 9,300. I think, yes. Scott, what do you think about Tyreek? We gotta talk through the top of the board here. Tyreek versus Amon-Ra.
Yeah, I don't know. Everyone
and Lamb.
Yeah, everyone's site has it just like Tyreek, no brainer.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm there too.
Yeah, I don't know. I just look at what CeeDee Lamb has done.
I'd have Lamb. I think Jake, maybe you mentioned it, but I'd have Lamb projected right with Tyreek, and then
I think you could argue Keenan Allen and Lamb are just as good plays. At least from a median perspective. Can either guy score 60 points like Tyreek can?
No, and ARSB too. It's kind of wild. The argument for Tyreek though is just like who is the most productive wide receiver this year, and by a wide margin, it's Tyreek. Who has the best spike week upside? It's definitely Tyreek. His matchup isn't great on paper, but I'm kind of inclined to think like I don't know how real that is. Like when you're looking at a juggernaut offense like the Dolphins, or specifically Tyreek, who's just the man. And it's also Lamb has a tough on paper matchup. But he's just an amazing play. The only note I'll have is like I do think it's a lot closer within this top tier than how just about everyone else has it. I will have Tyreek as my cash wide receiver just because that's who you're going to be playing against in cash.
Yeah. The only real matchup note I had just in my research this week is Raiders play a lot of zone, and that is helping Waddle a little. Tyreek gets a few more targets against man. It's a little wider splits. Waddle's efficiency looks really good against zone. Just that, it's Tyreek is his own orbit. On FanDuel, it's a lot easier to play Waddle this week. His price has finally come down 7,100 over there. I think he'll be right there with Tank Dell as like one of the highest owned players on FanDuel. Going through some of the stuff over there, Waddle's a little harder to play on DK. Yeah, Josh Jacobs. We got to talk through Josh Jacobs here. Jake, you have any thoughts on him? I mean, it's obviously they're huge dogs, but volume's been so good.
Yeah, it's just dependent on them being able to keep this game close. I mean, Antonio Pierce has been pretty vocal about wanting to get him over the 100-yard, DraftKings bonus for those extra fantasy points.
Yes, sir.
And, that does matter. I'm not sure that it matters a ton in this matchup, though. It's easy to see Miami getting up big early and Vegas needing to get away from Jacobs as their bell cow. But one of the notes I had in study hall, I mean, last 2 weeks, 26.5 carries per game. The prior 8 weeks, he was at like 16.5 carries per game. So yeah, the volume has been incredible for Jacobs, but again, I think it's dependent on them keeping this game close, and the spread's 13. It's, no one really thinks that's going to happen. So you could argue for him as like contrarian play, but he's projecting well. He's probably going to be 10 to 12% owned. So I don't think you're getting like a huge ownership discount playing a guy like Jacobs. I mean, I'm fine just stacking Miami and leaving it at that, but you can work in Josh Jacobs if you think this game's tighter than Vegas may imply.
Yeah, if you're running Tua, Tyreek, you do not have to stack Raiders. I will note, I mean, they've just been to 2 really great game scripts back to back here. Raiders have been. They've been running at like 10% over expectation in back to back weeks. They're not going to be able to do that this week, but I will note, 3 starts ago, I think it was against the Chargers, Jacobs did get 11 targets in a game that was negative game script from O'Connell, so he does have some pass down upside for sure.
We haven't seen it with this new regime change.
That's very fair. It's very fair.
One last note on Waddle, like the dude is so insanely dude for like a blow up game.
By XFP, it's insane. I've been saying it every week too. But
he ranks second among all players in XFP per route run since week 2. He's run bad on route share in recent weeks because of back spasms or whatever it was. But dude, he's just so due. I know the price isn't perfect on DraftKings, but one of these days it's coming.
He got rolled up on the second play of the game in Germany, and he had like a 50% route share because of it. Should be full go, no injury designation. So yeah, I'm going to play Waddle on FanDuel this week for sure.
Final note, Tua double stacks on DraftKings are like borderline prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Which I think on its own might be, an argument where you say like, look, you're giving up a ton in terms of median projection if you're playing Tua, Waddle, Tyreek, but they could combine for 100 points.
Absolutely.
Here's the triple stack. Are you ready for it?
Oh no.
Tua, Waddle, A-Chain, Mustard.
Come on, don't do that.
I mean, how many times has that cashed for you in games? H-Chan has been healthy.
I mean, Mostert could easily double dong, easily.
No, I would go to a wide receiver plus H-Chan. I like that a lot.
Yeah. By the way, Raheem Mostert has like the same odds to score a touchdown as Christian McCaffrey this week, in case you're wondering. I want to note just one thin-ish play I'm not totally out on is Michael Mayer. Season high route share last week, 2,700. They're going to have to throw it. Caught a touchdown, 5 targets, season high too. Not a terrible spot. Dolphins, not that great against tight ends. They're getting some dudes back though. I just think Miami rolls. I mean, they're getting, Ramsey back, Xavier Howard's in there. Jalen Phillips missed a few games, so they got some dudes back. All right, last game of the 1 p.m. slate. We've got a completely uneven slate this week, by the way. 8 games in the 1 p.m. window, 3 in the afternoon. Last game, Cowboys, Panthers. Cowboys on the road getting 10.5, over-unders 42. Quick injury notes. Peyton Hendershot can return from IR for the Cowboys. And I think that's kind of like a minor note for Jake Ferguson that matters a little bit. Hendershot was like 30-40% route share when he was healthy. We'll see if he gets, usual role. Cowboys do like to play a little too tight end. Panthers side, Hayden Hurst is out, but who cares? Their defense is getting a little healthier. Brian Burns should be back. JC Horn should be back. Yeah, Dak and CeeDee Lamb has just been the nuts for the last like 3 weeks. You can make the same argument this week. They're a lot more expensive though, Jake.
Yeah, they are a lot more expensive. That should, bring down ownership. I mean, they've been incredibly pass heavy these last 3 weeks, plus 12% pass rate over expectation. Prior to this 3-game stretch, they only had games over 2 games over a 9% pass rate over expectation. So this is, a pretty big shift in terms of how Dallas is calling their offense, going incredibly pass heavy here.
Mhm.
For what it's worth, Carolina is a top 5 run funnel. They're a tough schedule adjusted matchup for quarterbacks, tough schedule adjusted matchup for wide receivers. You could argue, maybe this is Tony Pollard week. I think on FanDuel, that argument sits a little better. On DraftKings, I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's easy to love Dak and CeeDee Lamb when this pass volume is absurd. CD is so heavily involved, 25.3 expected fantasy points over his last 3 games. Yeah, just insane.
The RB's window is loaded on DK. I'm with you on Pollard on FanDuel. He was mega chalk again last week, mega busted again. Panthers have faced 30 carries inside the 5 at the goal line. 30. That's 10 more than the next closest team. And I personally just can't wait to see how this goes wrong. It was hilarious. We sent out, as we always do, a Sunday mailer, just, pumping out our content. And the headline was like, "Is it Tony Pollard week?" And we had a bunch of people respond, "No, just no." And I think that's kind of been the case. But this is, holy shit, has to be the spot, man.
Well, to be fair, Jacob, who does our newsletter, quoted me, who said it wasn't going to be Tony Pollard week.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
Yeah, Jake, my question to you is, what do you think Dak's ownership is going to be this week?
Yeah, that's tough. I think, quarterback, it's going to be pretty flat after Purdy and Kyler. I would assume 7 to 9%. He'll be up there. But all
right. So I have a new favorite GPP QB. Why not? Why not Dak as the number 1 GPP quarterback of the week, Jake? Why not?
I don't have an argument against it. I mean, I think there's a real chance, Mike McCarthy, he famously spent a summer in the PFF offices learning all about analytics. And I think it may have just taken him a little while to mentally put it together that they just need to throw every single play. And
I talked to some of my guys at PFF. They said they gave him a tour of the office and he ate a donut and then he was out the door. So
he looked at a computer and he's now smart my proxy.
Something you and Mike McCarthy have in common. You were both PFF interns for a summer. Here's the Dak argument, which is so easy to make. He's averaged 35.1 DK fantasy points per game over his last 3, a low of 31.4. Dallas is easily the most pass heavy team over this span. Also the most pass heavy they've been in years. And so, like Jake said, it's a run funnel matchup on paper. I think there's credence to playing Tony Pollard. I kind of like Tony Pollard as a GPP play, especially if he isn't going to be chalk, because his volume was still, once again, awesome. He got 3 carries inside the 5. He had a 90% snap share until Dak Prescott was pulled. That would have led all running backs in the week. The issue was Dallas just went insanely pass heavy, and why wouldn't they? Why shouldn't they? When Dak is on this insane heater and it's clearly working and it's clearly the strength of this offense, and Pollard's really struggling. And I was digging into the numbers. This makes me feel a little conspiratorial, but I was digging into the numbers. I think it's possible Carolina is actually a fake run funnel, because if you look at XF PPR allowed versus XFP allowed, they are seeing a ton of volume. And, Adam Harstead, volume is efficiency and all that, which is real. But if you look at efficiency on the volume, they're actually top 12 against running backs on the ground and bottom 12 against wide receivers. This could be the same exact spot as the Giants. But the bottom line, the argument for this is why the fuck is the quarterback plus the wide receiver, CeeDee Lamb, this low owned? When you look at over the last 4 games, they combined for 47, 60, 76, 64, and 84 DraftKings fantasy points. This has been the number 1 cheat code. You've made so much money playing Dak Prescott the last 4 weeks. Let's just do it again.
Yeah. No, I think that's just right. Especially on DK, man. 7,300 is I mean, it's kind of an insulting price too for how good he's been. I love it. Panthers side, I think, is super simple. If you want to run back, it's Thielen. I'm not messing with this backfield. I'm not messing with anything else on this team. I mean, Bryce Young is like regressing in front of our eyes, and he's got a horrible, horrible matchup, obviously, here with Dallas. So that would be the one argument against Dak is, just like last week, people said it, they're going to dust the Giants, but Dak scored 30. Guess what? They could dust the Panthers and Dak score 30 again. He scored 40 last week, actually. I don't have anything else, really. I think that covers it.
We should do a 1 p.m. only lineup.
I know. It is a fun week to kind of split that. All right. Bucks, Niners. We've been talking about Purdy. He's 5,900, man. He's going to be mega chalk, but he's an amazing play again. Just way too cheap on DK. No injury notes in this game too. Clean game. Niners are like completely injury free. They could absolutely go on a roll. They just dusted the Jags last week. Completely dismembered them. Jake, Purdy week.
Let me steal Purdy if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
So I talked about Jared Goff's home road splits. Purdy is like exactly the same way. 6 of his 7 best games of his career have come at home. The one outlier performance came last week. I don't know. I thought I was coming correct, but I didn't have my notes perfectly organized. And then I'll steal this one from Jake, which he was going to hit on anyway. But Tampa Bay, top 3 pass funnel by pass rate over expectation. At a bare minimum, I think that raises his odds of, like McCaffrey not getting all the touchdowns, like bolsters his GPP winning potential. It's also a great matchup on paper. Tampa Bay is giving up the second most schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks over their last 5 games. DraftKings absolutely refuses to increase his salary. Jake, you can pick that back up.
I mean, love Purdy. Like I said, right there with Kyler is the cash play on FanDuel. And I do think, Scott's point to maybe McCaffrey not stealing all the touchdowns, certainly has credence. Like they, at the end of last week's game, they were trying pretty hard to get him a touchdown to keep the streak going. The streak is now done. He had 50% of team XFP in the red zone from week 5 to week 10. I could see that coming down and them, leaning maybe a little more into Purdy, especially in this pass funnel matchup. Tampa Bay is very zone heavy, so Debo would be my preferred stacking partner. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk has played incredibly well this year. George Kittle is a dog. So, you can pair Purdy with all those guys and that's more than fine. I am on the Tampa Bay side. I am pretty surprised that Rachaad White isn't drawing more ownership. He's been the RB5, RB1, RB13 by expected fantasy points over the last 3 weeks. He has an 89% snap share inside the 20. That's 4th best among all running backs. Over the last month, he has more receiving fantasy points per game than Chris Godwin and Puka Nacua. His role is really strong, and it looks like we're going to get a pretty solid ownership discount on him. I mean, he should be single digits because, that 6K range is pretty deep. But I like him a lot. I wrote him up in the early look. I thought he would be chalky, and he's just not projecting as chalk. I really like Rachaad White.
Yeah, that was the only thing I wanted to note on the Bucs side too. You read my mind, Jake. I mean, his price on FanDuel makes 0 sense. He's 6,600 over there. I've been just putting him in lineups every single week over there. I'm going to do it again. It's a bad spot. People are going to play Devin Singletary at 6,500, and I get it. He projects great, but I'm going to be on Rachaad White for sure. I think he's just the best run back option. Obviously, you can make a case for Mike Evans every single week. Just great ceiling. He's been so consistent. And it's a good matchup too. Niners have been really bad against boundary receivers, but yeah, Jake, I align with you. I'm just playing Rachaad White again.
Yeah, I'm going that way too. For what it's worth, I mean, I would lean Evans as my preferred receiver if you want to go that route. But Godwin does have a significantly higher target share when Baker has been pressured. We know the San Francisco pass rush is incredible. This is, I think, a bottom 8 matchup for Tampa Bay pass blocking per our offensive line, defensive line matchup tool. So I don't see the same ceiling with Godwin as we've been getting with Mike Evans.
Yeah, I don't see it. I don't see it either, but he's kind of got like a little waddle to him. Like we were talking about how Waddle's overdue for a big game, and maybe to like an 80% degree. Same with Godwin, especially by XFP. But Evans is still the one. But really, man, I just Rashad White is 6,600 on FanDuel is just the nuts again. Yeah, easy game to stack too. Obviously, Purdy doubles, Purdy with Ayuk or Debo or Kittle singles is fine too. Yeah, any way you want to roll it. I think that'll do it for this game though. Seahawks Rams. This game's been a pick 'em all week. Total's 46.5. Tyler Lockett did not practice all week. This hamstring injury has been bothering him last couple weeks, but he did not suit up at all for practice. Rams side are out of the bye. Matthew Stafford isn't even on the injury report. Full practice all week. He's also going to get his right tackle, Rob Havenstein, back. That's a nice little boost for their offensive line. And Puka Nacua, full practice all week. He was dealing with a little bit of a knee issue going into the bye, but he is good to go. Fun game. Scott, I'll kick it to you first, man. This is the game in the afternoon window to stack. And I don't think it's going to be overly popular.
Is it? I'm not really about this, I don't think.
Yeah?
Yeah. You can make a case for Puka or Cooper Kupp. The matchup's not good. This is a resurgent Seattle secondary. Started off bottom 5, now top 5. I think Kupp has the worst on paper matchup against Witherspoon, but the best schematic matchup. He's been a little better against zone in recent weeks. I don't know. I have trouble picking between them, there's a lot of the other high priced wide receivers I like. So it makes me kind of just want to avoid it. And I have trouble imagining Seattle can like push them because, Seattle's just sucks so much ass this year. My favorite play on Seattle's side is JSN. And I don't even feel really good about it. Rams are a massive slot funnel and Lockett seems badly injured. And then Rams, you can make a case for Darrell Henderson as like a pivot off of Singletary. He's like a worse play, but we know the Rams like to feature their running backs near the end zone, and he was getting all that work, excluding all that work, probably like a 60-40 committee in his favor anyway. Not a great play. I think I'm just kind of avoiding this game unless I'm missing something. What do you think, Graham?
I just think these quarterbacks project a little better. I get it. Stafford hasn't had much of a ceiling. Same with Geno, but he popped last week against the Commanders. I get it's been choppy, but I think Seattle can push LA. I think this game definitely has scoring potential. And I like that nobody's on it. Kupp to me is the play. I love Jackson Smith and Jigba. The props just came out for him. I will be giving it out and over really quickly on him. I like him as a play, especially if Lockett misses. And then Ken Walker, you can always make a case for in tournaments. But this week, I would rather focus more on the quarterbacks and the pieces in the pass game, especially if Seahawks are a little more condensed without Lockett. By the way, that's really the only big injury note just to track throughout the weekend is Lockett. But yeah, I think I like this game a little more than most then. Jake, what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think Geno's probably going to go over-owned here. I'm seeing 8 to 10% industry wide. I really don't like him at that. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe other people have the same thought, and he'll be a more reasonable 6% or something like that. I have a little interest in Stafford. I mean, the guy was dealing before the UCL injury. I don't know if I'm going to get to him on main, but for 4 p.m. only, I think I really like him. Nacua and Kupp are both fine. They've had pretty much the same target share in the games they've played together. So I would lean Nacua slightly just for the discount, but they're both fine plays. Totally avoiding Lockett. He's never done anything when he's injured. And I'm with you guys on JSN. I think that's, even if Lockett is active, I mean, if he's beat up at all, which it seems like he is, JSN.
I mean, we've just seen no ceiling from any of these receivers this year. It's been crazy.
Yeah. Sims loved Geno last week. I think I'm looking at it now. Holy shit, he's 6,900 on FanDuel. He's going to be popular over there too. Damn, this game will be a little more popular than I thought then. I don't have much else though. I think that'll do it. Yeah. Bills Jets, last game of the slate. Bills getting 7 on the road, 39.5 is the total. Only injury note I have is Garrett Wilson. He's going to play. He said he's going to play. He's been dealing with this elbow injury. He's limited in practice all week. Not really sure on like severity or what happened. Maybe we'll get a report this weekend. Jets offensive line is going to be a disaster. Dwayne Brown is out. They're going to be without Billy Turner again. Not getting Dwayne Brown back off of IR. Blurg. Kind of a gross game. Jake, I'll throw it to you first for your general thoughts.
Yeah, I really like Garrett Wilson. Obviously, I know, dealing with the injury, so you could poke some holes in him for that. But, 22.8 expected fantasy points per game over his last 4 games. The Jets have been shockingly pass heavy over the last month. I believe there was a stretch during last week's game where they had 27 straight pass attempts. I don't know what's going on with that, but it's led to just incredible volume for Garrett Wilson. Sure, he's fallen way under expectation, but I think you could argue for him as a pretty strong value, not quite cash viable, but strong value still at 6,400 on DraftKings. I don't have a ton of interest in Breece Hall. Dalvin Cook has gotten a little more hype from Robert Saleh, so that's tricky. And them going more pass heavy doesn't exactly help Hall. On the Buffalo side, I mean, this is just a brutal matchup. The Jets are, the single toughest schedule adjusted matchup for both opposing quarterbacks and opposing wide receivers. I think when you look at the high priced wide receivers, Diggs is pretty clearly the worst option of that group. I'm really not a huge fan of Josh Allen in this matchup, but maybe Ken Dorsey really was what was holding them back, and Joe Brady can, get this offense fired up again. I just don't think it's the spot matchup against the Jets. And, Vegas seems to agree the total here is only 40. Kincaid's nice, I think, but outside of that, it's pretty much just Wilson and Kincaid for me.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm off Josh Allen too.
Jets, I mean, he's only 2%, and like that's I kind of play that maybe should never be 2%. Yeah, maybe Joe Brady just hammers design runs and scrambles or something.
Yep. To me, that just seemed like a scapegoat fire by McDermott. It's just my 2 cents. He fired Leslie Frazier too. He's just trying to save his job. But yeah, I'm out on Breece too, man. Just he's gonna catch a lot of ownership too. I think he's gonna go over owned. Their run game has just been so atrocious. I get it. It's like it looks like a good matchup. Bills can be run on, but they've been a lot better as of late. I know they've dealt with a lot of injuries, but they've really shored up the run defense. Like, maybe McDermott's probably not a good head coach, but he's definitely a good defensive coach. Last 4 weeks, they've given up just 3.3 yards per carry. So I kind of think Breece might be a little bit of a trap. You can always make the ceiling argument for him, but yeah, I kind of echo Jake's thoughts. I don't really have too much else.
I like Tyler Conklin, 2,900.
Ooh, nice call. Yeah.
He's hit at least 6 targets and 66 receiving yards in back-to-back games. That was despite only a 59.6 route share. CJ Uzoma has been liking weird tweets after beat writers suggested a demotion was incoming. They kind of mentioned that more for Ruckert, but it's still possible Conklin gets a little bit more usage. He's just an interesting pivot play off of Freiermuth. They're like way better tight end plays, but he's in that cheap price range. And Khalil Shakir is a little interesting as a punt. He's looked good, he's just a viable punt, but not super high on my radar.
No, I like that Conklin call, man. That's a good call. He's like Stoneman over on FanDuel too, basically 4,800 over there. Like that call. All right, should we build a lineup? Is it time?
Oh, are we done? Wow.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we're pros, baby. Hour and 15 minutes. Look, I mean, God, we're in mid-season form, boys. Let's go. Let's make a lineup.
Wow.
Sick. All right. Scott, I'll let you start, man. Where do you think we should get the lineup going here?
Maybe Dak or Detroit, Chicago game stack.
You seemed like you were kind of all in on that Lions Bears game, and I'm kind of with you, especially if ownership ends up being. Let's see here. Yeah, you want to do a field stack with Amon-Ra?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's do that. All right. So we'll pop in Fields. with DJ and Amon-Ra.
I think we, depending on salary and all that, we can consider Jahmyr Gibbs, Cole Kmet, Josh Reynolds, maybe Sam Laporta, but definitely like that core.
Okay. Yeah, let's come back to it and see if we need to add any pieces.
Yeah.
So
here, let me build this alongside you.
Yeah, please
I'm doing that too.
Yeah. Jake, what do you think about backs?
I mean, we got to go with our boy, Achan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right. We'll lock him in too.
What about B-Rob?
Ooh, B-Rob could take care of defense too. Fire up Washington.
Love it. I'm not too
It's all coming together, guys.
So 4,200 average left for these last 3 spots.
Reynolds, little game stack. We are a little probably
Reynolds
ownership heavy. I don't hate that.
Hold
on.
I don't think we're too bad with ownership, honestly.
Yeah.
You know who'd look really good in this lineup? CeeDee Lamb and Keenan Allen.
Yeah,
and Tyreek.
If we can
make it work. Figure it out.
Yeah, if you do Tyreek Hill, then for tight end and flex, you have 1,700 average remaining. Ooh. So that's
well, tight. You just take a zero
and just force that one.
Right, well, I mean, we got 4,200 remaining. I mean, I think to me, McBride's just like the nuts.
Oh boy!
Or we punt tight end. So I'm gonna put in McBride. He's just the nuts again. And then
oh wow, this all fits so perfectly, guys.
It's nice.
Hit optimize. I think it's gonna pull it for us, but if not, I'll force it out.
Let's see.
Wait till you see. Oh no! What the fuck?
Oh, Marquise
Conklin.
Conklin. What?
All right, here. Go back. Yeah. Go back. All right, hit lock Josh Reynolds and then see if it does it. It might not, but we'll get there. Let's see. Come on. No whammies. Damn it. No. Go back to player settings. And now Christian Watson and then click.
Oh, no.
Come on.
Dude, it fits perfect. Zero salary left over.
You know what? Just for that.
Zero salary left over.
Excluding.
No. No.
Sorry. I had to do it. Can't do it.
You're breaking my heart, guy.
No. I would like a little mini with McBride.
All right. Well, I'm going to enter this in the Thunderdome, and then I'm going to retire, and you'll never see me again after I win it all.
Well, then that'd make me sad. We send me a little money. We'll go to Costa Rica together.
All right, we'll do that.
All right, great show, boys. Really good stuff for Scott, for Jake, for Tom Tipple. Good luck this week, guys. Fun slate, week 11. Make some good lineups, and we'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.